She should have died the moment she crossed the red stone line. Every soldier in Moonwell Yard believed it. The royal healers had already fled. The guards had lowered their spears and backed toward the gate. Even Alpha King Ronan Ashford stopped beneath the archway when he saw the low-born laundress walking through the rain with nothing but a dented bucket and a folded cloth. Before her stood Calder, the Crown Fang of Iron Pine. The ash-gray direwolf was larger than a warhorse. Blood covered his fur from throat to tail. 3 iron chains held him to the recovery wall, though one link had already bent nearly straight beneath his strength. He had carried kings through fire, dragged wounded soldiers from battlefields, and torn enemy alphas from their saddles. Now he would not allow anyone near him. The laundress stopped within reach of his jaws. She did not command him. She did not raise the cloth. She set down the warm water, lowered her eyes, and waited. The entire yard expected blood. Instead, Calder slowly folded his front legs. The most feared beast in the Northern Kingdom knelt before a woman no one important had ever noticed. Then she washed the first line of blood from his shoulder. The water turned blue-black. Something metallic fell into the bucket with a sharp sound. It was a poison dart stamped with the seal of Iron Pine's royal armory. As Ronan looked from his kneeling beast to the frightened woman beside him, he understood that the war had not ended at the border. The enemy had returned wearing his own colors. Only an hour earlier, the army had entered Iron Pine Citadel beneath a hard autumn rain. Men limped through the gates carrying broken shields and torn banners. Victory should have brought cheering, but the courtyard remained strangely quiet. Too many soldiers had returned without the friends who had marched beside them. Calder came last. The Crown Fang had fought beside Ronan for 27 years. He was not merely a beast of war. He was the last living creature connected to Ronan's father, his childhood, and Luna Celine, whose death had turned part of the palace into a place no one dared mention. The soldiers dragged Calder into Moonwell Recovery Yard, where the old spring channels once washed blood from sacred wolves after battle. Years earlier, the yard had been warm, open, and filled with healers who understood that even powerful creatures required gentleness. After Celine died there, Ronan ordered the inner sanctuary closed. He never intended to abandon it. He simply stopped returning. Chancellor Edric Voss reduced its funding quietly. Royal Beastmaster Draven Cole replaced patient handlers with chains, restraint poles, and strong sedatives. What had once been a place of recovery became a quarantine enclosure where frightened servants entered only when ordered. On the afternoon of the army's return, Elena Hart was assigned to the outer sanitation trench. At 36, Elena held no title worth announcing. She was a lowborn Omega and a 6th-rank laundress attached to the Royal Mercy Corps. Her duties included washing healer cloths, wolf blankets, harness padding, and anything else covered in blood that people of higher rank preferred not to touch. Her position allowed her into infirmaries, kitchens, service passages, and the outer section of Moonwell Yard during assigned hours. It did not allow her to cross the red boundary stones surrounding Calder's inner enclosure. She had entered legally through the narrow service gate to collect contaminated harness padding before the rain washed battlefield residue into the spring. Then Calder broke one chain. The guards retreated. Elena did not. She watched him scrape his left shoulder against the stone wall until fresh blood ran through his fur. He was not pursuing the men. He was trying to remove something that hurt. Beneath the rain and blood, Elena smelled bitter metal. She had noticed that scent before. During the 5-night march home, she had seen Calder refuse the dark water provided by Draven's attendants. On the first night, she emptied the trough after midnight and left clean water beyond the reach of his chain. He waited until she left before drinking. On the second night, he drank while she sat beneath a supply wagon repairing torn bandages. On the third, she spoke quietly while keeping her eyes lowered. On the fourth, she placed willow bark near his swollen paw. During the fifth, thunder rolled over the camp, and she remained outside his shelter until his breathing slowed. She had never touched him. She had never commanded him. She had simply returned. Now she stood beside the red boundary while guard Brencade caught her sleeve. "Where are you going?" "He is hurt. That thing has killed alphas." Elena looked down at the bucket in her hand. Then he has had a very long day. Bren released her when Calder growled. A few soldiers laughed nervously. One said the laundress would save them the trouble of an execution. Another looked away, unwilling to witness what he believed would happen. Draven watched from the covered walkway. He could have ordered Elena back. He did not. He expected Calder to kill her, removing both a troublesome servant and someone who had begun asking questions about the beast's water. Elena crossed the boundary. She stopped beyond Calder's striking distance, placed the bucket down, and waited. Rain slid from her hair and gathered along her lashes. Her heart beat so hard she could hear it, yet she made no sudden movement. Calder recognized her scent. Clean water, willow bark, wet linen. The quiet woman who had never forced him to choose between obedience and fear. He approached. When he knelt, Elena reached for the cloth only after he closed his golden eyes. "You carried enough today," she whispered. The first touch made him shudder, but he remained still. She washed again. Blood loosened beneath her hand, revealing swollen skin around a narrow puncture wound. The water in the bucket darkened from red to blue-black. Then the dart fell. Ronan entered the yard as Elena lifted it from the water. He had faced armies without hesitation, yet the sight of Calder kneeling before a stranger stopped him completely. The dart carried the royal crest. Ronan took it without touching Elena's fingers. "Seal every gate." The guards obeyed. Draven hurried down from the walkway. "Your Majesty." She removed evidence before it could be examined. "I removed it from his shoulder," Elena said. "That does not make you innocent." Two guards stepped toward her. Calder opened his eyes and placed one enormous paw between Elena and the soldiers. A growl moved through his chest. Ronan studied the beast, then the woman. "Do not take her to the cells," he ordered. "Use the Eastern Service Room." Draven frowned. She crossed a sacred boundary. And Calder will tear through a wall if he hears her dragged away. No one challenged the decision. Captain Mara Bell escorted Elena through the narrow passage beside the laundry wing. Elena's wet shoes left dark prints across the stone. The service room contained one table, two chairs, and a barred window overlooking Moonwell Yard. Mara searched her herself. She placed every item on the table: willow bark, rosemary, clean thread, folded linen, and a small rounded knife used for cutting cloth. Draven examined the herbs. "Enough to calm an animal." "Willow bark eases swelling," Elena said. "And the knife?" "I work with cloth." "You expect the crown to believe you carried all this by accident?" "I work beside wounded soldiers. Blood rarely waits for permission." The door opened. Edric Voss entered wearing dry black robes despite the storm. He was 61, silver-haired, composed, and trusted by nearly every powerful family in Ironpine. He had advised Ronan for 20 years and managed wartime supply reports while the king commanded the army. His right thumb rubbed slowly across the wax seal on his ring. He looked at Elena as though she were something carried inside on a dirty boot. "A low-born Omega crossed into the Crown Fang's enclosure," he said. "She carried herbs, interfered with royal treatment, and possessed unusual knowledge of the beast's condition. The simplest explanation may be the correct one." Ronan stood by the window. "Which explanation?" "She poisoned Calder, then arranged to be seen saving him." Elena's breath caught. She did not beg. She had learned that powerful men often mistook silence for guilt and fear for proof. Ronan turned toward her. "Name?" "Elena Hart." "Position?" "6th rank laundress. Royal Mercy Corps." "Why were you in Moonwell Yard?" "I was assigned to collect contaminated harness padding from the outer trench." Mara opened the duty ledger. Elena's name appeared beside the sanitation order. "You crossed the red line," Ronan said. "Yes." "You knew Calder could kill you." "Yes." "And still you crossed?" Elena looked through the bars toward the beast lying in the rain. "No one else did." The room became silent. Ronan asked whether she had approached Calder during the march. Elena admitted replacing his water. Draven stepped forward. "You see? I never entered his enclosure." "Why replace it?" "It smelled bitter." He would not drink. Edric's thumbs stopped moving. Ronan noticed. How many times? 3. Why did you tell no one? I filed sanitation warnings. With whom? The Chancellor's Supply Office. Edric gave a quiet laugh. My office receives hundreds of servant complaints. They concern the Crown Fang. They came from a laundress. Ronan looked at Mara. Find them. A knock sounded. Bren entered holding his helmet beneath one arm. His face had lost its color. Ronan asked why he had not stopped Elena. Bren stared at the floor. I thought she would turn back. Elena raised her eyes. No. You thought the beast would stop me before you had to. Bren could not deny it. Before Ronan spoke again, a healer arrived carrying Calder's usual black tonic. The scent reached the yard. Calder surged upright. His chains slammed against the stone. Foam gathered around his jaws as he backed away in blind panic. Elena ran past the guards and knocked the bowl from the healer's hands. Black liquid spread across the floor. Arrest me after, she told Ronan. Just do not make him drink that. Ronan looked at Calder's terror. Then he examined the treatment reports. They claimed Calder had consumed the same tonic calmly for 12 days. Every page carried Draven's signature. Every supply order bore Edric's seal. Ronan removed Calder's treatment authority from Draven and placed Elena under guarded supervision rather than formal arrest. By dusk, rain had softened to mist. Elena sat outside Calder's enclosure, with clean water beside her and 2 guards behind her. Ronan remained in the shadow of the archway. He wanted to see what she did when she believed he was not watching closely. She placed the bowl near the chain's edge, turned sideways, and began repairing a torn blanket. Calder watched her. Only when her gaze lowered to the needle did he crawl forward and drink. Ronan entered the yard. How long have you been doing this? 5 nights. You touched him before today? No. Then why did he kneel? Because I never asked him to. That is not an answer. It was to him. Elena described each night. Ronan listened without interrupting. For 27 years, Calder had obeyed commands, guarded his king, and entered every battlefield at Ronan's side. Elena had offered no command at all. She had offered choice. That truth disturbed him because rank could demand obedience, but it could not manufacture trust. Mara returned carrying 3 receipt slips. Elena's sanitation complaints had been registered. Each bore the date, time, and seal of the Chancellor's office. The complaints themselves were missing. Ronan asked why Elena had not come to him directly. Kings at war do not receive laundresses. You could have tried. I did. The answer struck because she spoke without anger. A sharp hiss broke the quiet. Elena had pulled the needle through the bandage around her palm instead of the blanket. Fresh blood darkened the cloth. You are injured, Ronan said. It appears so. You did not notice? I was busy being accused of treason. For one breath, his expression softened. Mara placed the armory registry in his hand. The dart's number belonged to a set of 12 widow silver weapons supposedly destroyed 3 months earlier after a storage fire. Edric approved the destruction. Draven signed as witness. Outside, Calder pressed his head against the bars nearest Elena. Ronan looked from the beast to the vanished complaints. For the first time, his suspicion shifted. The following morning, Nora Fen tested Calder's blood beneath the covered archway. She was a junior royal healer, young enough to be dismissed by senior physicians and experienced enough to know when she was being ordered not to see something. She added a clear reagent to the vial. The blood turned blue-black. The concentration is too high, she said. Draven stood under guard nearby. For a single dart? Ronan asked. Far too high. He must have received silver repeatedly through another source. Elena looked toward the tonic. Nora tested it. A thin silver film formed along the glass. Draven said the sample was contaminated. No one believed him. Before Ronan could question him further, the main gate opened. Edric entered with council elders, noble witnesses, and palace guards. He claimed rumors were spreading that Elena had gained unnatural control over the Crown Fang. He spoke of scent binding, an old superstition suggesting an Omega could manipulate a wounded wolf through herbs and repeated exposure. Fearful nobles listened. Elena said she had never commanded Calder. Edric looked at her. That may be the most dangerous part. He ordered the guards to remove her. 4 men advanced. Elena did not resist. Resistance would make Edric's accusation easier to sell. Calder rose. He placed his enormous body between Elena and the soldiers. He did not attack. He simply refused to let them pass. One guard whispered, "He chose her." Edric's mouth tightened. "He has been corrupted." "No," Ronan said. "He has been frightened." The king entered the enclosure alone. Calder turned toward him, tense and uncertain. Ronan had expected immediate obedience for most of his life. This time, he stopped several steps away and waited. Calder did not approach. Elena understood. She moved away from him and lowered herself near the wall, leaving an open path. "No one is taking me," she whispered. "You can look at him." Calder's ears shifted. Ronan held out one empty hand. The great wolf crossed the space and lowered his head beneath the king's palm. Ronan's fingers sank into wet ash-gray fur. Elena had not stolen Calder's loyalty. She had helped him feel safe enough to offer it again. After Edric left, Mara searched Draven's treatment chamber. Inside a locked cabinet, they found burned paper, empty hooks, and a clean rectangle in the dust where a large book had rested. The faded moon symbol above the shelf belonged to Celine. Ronan remembered the volume. It was her original Crown Fang recovery manual. Draven claimed it had burned years earlier. Elena examined the dust. No, it was removed within days. She remembered seeing moon-marked linen delivered to the servants' furnace 2 nights before the army returned. The lower laundry stood beneath the eastern wing, where 3 brick ovens kept the stone damp with heat. Servants moved aside when the king entered. Mara searched the ash. At first, she found nothing. Then Elena saw pale linen cot beneath the grate. Celine's crescent emblem had survived. Several parchment fragments rested below it. Most crumbled when touched, but Nora read one line clearly. Blackroot must never be administered after silver exposure. It deepens confusion, raises fever, and may provoke violent defensive behavior. Ronan stared at the words. Draven had prescribed Blackroot every day. The royal kennel ledger was requested immediately. It was missing. By sunset, the palace had begun to whisper. Someone understood that Ronan was no longer reading the summaries Edric prepared for him. The king was following original records. Bren found Elena near the kennel passage. His face shone with sweat despite the cold. "I need to speak with the king." "Then speak." "Not here." Elena noticed finger-shaped bruises around his wrist. "Who threatened you?" Bren looked toward the corridor. The order at Moonwell Yard did not come from Draven. A House Voss messenger told us not to intervene if Calder broke free. He said the animal was already condemned. Bren pulled a burned fragment of parchment from inside his coat. "I found this in the furnace ash after the guards left. Someone saw me take it." A shadow moved at the far end of the passage. A blade flashed. The attacker struck Bren beneath the ribs and disappeared into the service tunnels. Bren fell, scattering his keys across the floor. Elena dropped beside him and pressed cloth against the wound. "You should go," he whispered. "Calder needs you." "So do you." "I let you cross because I thought he would kill you. Then live long enough to regret it properly." Mara arrived with Ronan moments later. The guard who had abandoned Elena survived only because she refused to abandon him. The burned fragment listed 3 Blackroot deliveries to Moonwell Yard. At the bottom appeared the authorization code of House Voss. The final order had been approved on a night Edric claimed to be beyond Ironpine's northern border. Ronan summoned the Chancellor before sunrise. Edric remained calm. A copied mark proves little. It proves someone expected the original ledger to disappear. Then question the laundress who keeps finding convenient evidence. Before Ronan answered, Calder released a broken sound. His fever had risen. Nora entered with 6 guards. Their armor scraped across the stone, and Calder backed against the wall. Ronan ordered them ready to restrain him if necessary. Elena stepped between the poles. "Send them away. They are here to protect you." "From whom?" "Calder. He is afraid of them." He nearly tore through a healer. "Because they surrounded him with chains and poles." Ronan's voice hardened. I will not leave you unprotected. Elena's hands trembled, but she held his gaze. Protection is not always more men at the door. Sometimes it is noticing who is afraid of them. Ronan looked at Calder. The beast's fear had a direction. His eyes moved from spear to spear. Ronan dismissed half the guards and ordered the others beyond the red stones. Within minutes, Calder's breathing slowed. For years, Ronan had confused control with safety. Later, inside the reopened sanctuary, Elena crushed herbs while Nora prepared a clean infusion. Ronan stood beneath the archway where Celine once kept her records. I stopped coming here after she died, he said. Elena's hands paused. She died beside that spring. Calder refused food for 9 days. I ordered the sanctuary closed because every sound reminded me of her. I am sorry. So was everyone. They were careful with me. No one spoke her name. No one asked why this place was falling apart. Because grief made them afraid of you. You think grief excuses what happened? No. Her answer was gentle but firm. It explains why you looked away. It does not repair what happened while you were not looking. Ronan stared at Hare. No council member spoke to him that way. Elena returned to the herbs. My father and my brother Tomas died behind a quarantine door, she said. Officials blamed the kennel workers afterward. They said the records proved the workers ignored sanitation rules. You believed the records were false. I knew they were false. No one believed a kennel girl. Is that why you crossed the line for Calder? Elena looked toward the beast. I heard living creatures calling behind a locked door once. I promised myself I would never become one of the people who kept walking. When the medicine was ready, Ronan insisted on helping. He dropped too much rosemary into the bowl. Elena looked at the mixture, then at him. Your Majesty, we are treating him, not seasoning him. Nora covered a smile. Ronan removed half the rosemary. The warmth disappeared when Mara arrived, carrying Elena's original complaints. A frightened records clerk had hidden them behind a false panel after Edric ordered all documents concerning Calder's water removed. The clerk had been too afraid to speak until Bren was attacked. Each complaint described the bitter smell, Calder's refusal to drink, shaking limbs, and increasing distress. Ronan read all 3. I should have heard you. Elena's expression softened. You should have heard all of us. Ronan could not arrest Edric yet. Under Ironpine's wartime statutes, the royal chancellor possessed council immunity unless direct evidence of treason was produced or a majority of elders voted to remove him. The missing reports proved suppression. The supply marks suggested corruption. Neither yet proved attempted regicide. Edric knew it. He used that protection immediately. The council bells rang 3 times. Edric appeared in the gallery holding an emergency petition. He claimed Ronan's judgment had been compromised by an Omega servant and invoked the broken bond law. If Calder rejected or attacked the king during a formal test, the council could suspend Ronan's sacred authority and place his 17-year-old nephew Lucan under temporary regency. At sunrise, Moonwell Yard filled with elders, nobles, healers, and guards. Edric demanded Calder be separated from Elena and provoked. Ronan refused. No law requires cruelty for entertainment. This is not entertainment, Edric replied. It is protection. No. It is fear wearing legal robes. Edric ordered Elena detained under wartime sabotage law. The guards hesitated. His emergency authority remained technically valid while the council review was open. Elena stepped forward. Calder rose behind her. Stay, she whispered. The first guard reached for her arm. Ronan moved between them. He did not draw his sword. Elena Hart is under the protection of the crown. Edric stared at him. You would risk your authority for a servant? I am using my authority to correct what it failed to protect. The guards lowered their weapons. Calder stood beside Ronan, then settled near Elena. The 3 of them faced the council together. Edric folded the petition. This will not end here. It should not, Ronan answered. Later, Elena treated a cut across Ronan's palm where Calder's broken chain had caught him. You should have let Nora do this, he said. She is watching Calder. You are injured too. My hand has become accustomed to poor decisions. His eyes rested on her bandage. You do that often. Make poor decisions? Remain when leaving would be safer. Safer is not always better. Ronan placed Celine's old sanctuary key in Elena's palm. The crescent engraving was nearly hidden beneath rust. It has not been used in 8 years. Elena turned it over. I had guessed it was not part of a busy door. A quiet breath of laughter escaped him. Inside Celine's sanctuary, they found old treatment tools, rotted blankets, and a hidden stone compartment. It contained the original armory inventory. 12 widow silver darts had disappeared from storage before the records claimed they were destroyed. There was no new Regency document inside. The chamber had been sealed for 8 years. Its evidence belonged to Celine's time and proved only that the royal armory records had been altered. The second piece of evidence arrived through the doorway. Lucan Ashford entered carrying a sealed document. Edric had delivered it to the young heir's rooms 2 days before the battle. It was a draft Regency order. Lucan's face was pale. He told me to prepare for my uncle's failure. The date proved Edric expected the broken bond crisis before Calder had been wounded. Ronan ordered copies made in separate rooms so no single fire could erase the truth. By noon, House Voss supporters had gathered outside the lower service wing. They claimed Elena had bewitched the king and planned to become Luna through Calder's favor. A stone struck Moonwell Yard's outer gate. Calder lifted his head. It is only noise, Elena told him, though her hands shook. Nora entered quickly. Draven escaped. A knight officer loyal to House Voss had opened his cell. The same officer later admitted he had been promised land and rank. Ronan had gone to secure Lucan and present the Regency draft to loyal council members. Most of Mara's trusted guards had been moved to protect the archives. A man wearing a royal healer's cloak entered through the service gate. The officer stationed there accepted the forged seal and allowed him through. Draven carried a medical case and an order bearing the royal crest. The Crown Fang is to be put down before sunset. Nora stepped forward. The council has no authority without the king. Draven held up the paper. It bears his seal. Elena turned it over. The wolf's head faced left. Ronan's true seal faced right. This is false. Draven opened the case. Inside lay a silver syringe filled with cloudy black liquid. He struck Nora when she reached for the alarm rope. Elena moved between him and Calder. You cannot save him, Draven said. You poisoned him. I sedated him. You continued after you knew. You know nothing about what Edric can take from a man. Elena thought of her father and Tomas behind the quarantine door. I know exactly what fear can take. Draven lunged. Elena caught his wrist with both hands, but he drove her backward. The needle came within inches of her throat. Calder surged forward. Elena saw the killing instinct in his eyes. Wait. The beast stopped. His body shook with the effort, but he did not attack. Draven looked toward him. That moment was enough. Elena kicked the old iron release beside the spring channel. Water rushed across the stones, knocking Draven from his feet. The syringe flew from his hand and shattered. The flow triggered the sanctuary bell. Mara entered with guards and forced Draven face down into the water. Ronan arrived moments later from the outer council passage, where the alarm had reached him. He saw Nora bleeding, Elena soaked, the forged order, and Calder standing over them without attacking. Draven lifted his head. She attacked me. The beast is under her control. Ronan looked at the reversed seal and broken syringe. Then he looked at Calder, who had every reason to kill and had chosen restraint because Elena asked him to wait. I believe her. Draven's face collapsed. During questioning, he admitted the truth. Edric's plan had 2 stages. The Blackroot and Widow Silver tonic weakened Calder slowly, clouding his senses and making him increasingly defensive. The royal dart was intended to trigger a violent reaction during the victory procession, when Ronan would stand before the council and the people. Calder would appear to turn on his king. The broken bond law would be invoked. Lucan would be placed under regency. Edric would rule. Draven admitted Edric supplied the tonic, but refused to reveal where the widow's silver was refined. Before sunset, a guard entered the yard. House Voss wagons have left through the western gate. Which road? Ronan asked. No road. They entered the abandoned silver tunnels beneath the old wall. Ronan looked around the flooded sanctuary. You flooded a royal recovery chamber. Elena glanced at the blood, mud, and shattered glass moving past her boots. It needed cleaning. Only after Nora was safely on her feet did Ronan almost smile. The tunnel beneath the western tower glittered with fresh widow silver dust. Ronan entered with Mara and 12 trusted guards. Wheel marks cut through the silver powder. They caught the convoy before midnight. 6 wagons stood trapped near a collapsed support beam. Inside the sealed chests were armory transfers, payments to enemy scouts, medical orders, war contracts, and lists of officers who had accepted silver to remain silent. The final wagon carried Edric. He stood beside a burning ledger, feeding pages into a brazier. For the first time, his calm expression was gone. Step away from the fire, Ronan ordered. You do not understand what ruling requires. I understand enough. You won a war because men like me did what you were too honorable to do. Mara knocked the next page from his hand. Edric was chained and taken to Judgment Hall. At sunrise, the doors were opened to the public. Soldiers stood beside servants. Nobles faced healers, kennel workers, widows, and members of the lower pack who had never before been invited to witness a royal inquiry. Ronan remained beside the throne rather than sitting on it. Let every witness speak. No rank will silence them today. Nora explained the widow's silver reaction. Bren, still weak from his wound, identified the House Voss messenger. The frightened records clerk described hiding Elena's complaints after Edric ordered them destroyed. Draven was brought forward under guard. He explained the 2-stage poisoning plan and admitted Calder had been deliberately pushed toward a public attack. Edric laughed. You trust servants, frightened clerks, and a disgraced physician? Elena approached the evidence table. She placed the poison dart beside her 3 complaint receipts. I trust what remained after someone tried to burn everything else. Lucan placed the original Regency order beside the dart. It was delivered to me before the battle. Mara opened the recovered ledger. It contained payments to enemy scouts, false destruction reports, transport orders for widow silver, and the names of officers used to prolong the border conflict. Edric had not merely poisoned Calder. He had leaked Ronan's military route so the war would continue long enough to preserve emergency law and House Voss profits. The evidence had not arrived as one miracle. It had come as dozens of small truths powerful men believed too insignificant to matter. Edric lifted his chin. The Crown Fang remains corrupted. Bring him here. The great doors opened. Calder entered without chains. Fear moved through the hall. Soldiers touched their weapons. Nobles stepped backward. Elena remained still. Calder passed her and approached Ronan. He lowered his scarred head beneath the king's hand. Then he returned to Elena. Before the entire kingdom, Calder folded his front legs and knelt. He had not replaced Ronan with her. He trusted them both. Edric's final defense collapsed in the silence. Ronan looked at Elena. What should justice look like? Her gaze moved from Edric to the servants and soldiers whose lives had been damaged. Do not punish him by becoming what he expected you to be. Ronan did not order an execution. He ordered a public trial. For 3 days, witnesses spoke. War widows identified false payments hidden beneath their husbands' names. Soldiers described routes that led them into planned ambushes. Kennel workers explained how medicine vanished, while Calder received poison tonic. No testimony was dismissed because the speaker lacked rank. Edric was convicted of treason, attempted regicide, falsifying royal records, poisoning the Crown Fang, and profiting from a prolonged war. His title, seal, lands, and illegal wealth were taken. The money was divided among wounded soldiers, war widows, quarantine survivors, and workers he had threatened. Edric was sentenced to life in Moonless Keep without servants, political visitors, or authority over another living soul. Draven lost his medical license and was imprisoned. The officers who served Edric received individual trials. Ronan refused to punish their families. Justice must know the difference, he said, or it becomes another form of cruelty. Weeks later, the red boundary stones were removed from Moonwell Yard. Workers repaired the roof, opened the spring channels, and replaced iron restraints with recovery pens. Above the gate, two names were carved into pale stone: the Celine and Tomas Recovery Sanctuary. One name honored Ronan's Luna. The other honored Elena's brother, who died behind a locked quarantine door because no one powerful considered his life worth the risk. Ronan abolished the law that allowed workers to be sealed inside infected sites. He created independent medical oversight and ordered military reports copied beyond the control of any single office. Then he appointed Elena royal keeper of the sanctuary, with authority independent of the throne. She read the appointment twice, with the power to refuse even a king, with particular emphasis on that part. That seems unusually sensible. I have recently received excellent criticism. Elena accepted but refused the grand rooms offered near the royal wing. She chose a modest chamber overlooking the spring, where she could hear frightened animals during the night. Ronan did not try to change her mind. That was one of the first ways she knew he had changed. 6 months passed. Winter softened into spring. Calder's fur grew thick over the wound on his shoulder. He no longer flinched at medicine bowls or armored boots. Ronan visited without ceremonial guards. Some mornings he brought records. Some evenings he carried food. Once, he prepared Calder's herbs and nearly repeated the rosemary disaster. Elena took the bowl from him. You remain a danger in medical settings. I command an army. Herbs are less forgiving. Their affection grew in ordinary moments. Shared meals went cold beside reports. Ronan noticed when Elena's injured hand ached before rain. Elena reminded him that exhaustion was not proof of devotion. He learned to ask questions before issuing orders. She learned that accepting help did not make her weak. One evening, they stood beside the clear spring where poisoned blood had first revealed the betrayal. Ronan held out his hand. I will not offer you a crown as payment for what you did. Good. I would like you beside me because you challenge me, because Calder trusts you, and because this kingdom is kinder when you are hurt. Elena studied him. That was almost well asked. Almost? You still sound as though you are addressing the council. He smiled. I have had little practice asking for something I cannot command. Elena placed her hand in his. Calder rose, moved between them, and rested one enormous paw over both their hands. The kingdom remembered Ronan as the Alpha who won the border war. The people loved him as the king who finally learned that protecting a life required more than standing between it and a sword. It required listening. It required responsibility. It required staying beside the wound long after the battle was over. And this is where Elena, Ronan, and Calder's story finally grew quiet. Are you still here with me? Then perhaps you understood what Elena carried without ever begging the world to understand her. She was betrayed, dismissed, and accused, yet she never allowed someone else's fear to decide who she would become. She did not chase approval from people committed to misunderstanding her. She chose her character, her compassion, and her dignity again. You cannot control who lies about you or who refuses to see your value. You can control whether their cruelty changes the way you treat the next wounded life placed in front of you. That is not weakness. It is discipline with a warm heart. And anyone who keeps poisoning the water probably should not be invited back to dinner. If this story stayed with you, write one word in the comments: dignity. Tell me what you thought of Elena, and let me know what country you are watching from tonight. Thank you for staying until this final moment. A gentle like, share, or subscription would mean more than you know.